I wrote More Than a White Man's Religion because the conversation today, the social conversation, the media conversation, the dinner table conversations are so centered on the important issues of racial and gender equality. But I noticed something as well, that Christianity was being sucked into that conversation, but not in a good way. It was being sucked into the conversation about equality in terms of blame. In other words, is Christianity to blame for the social ills we're experiencing today, or the social ills of the past few hundred years when it comes to racial and gender inequalities? And many are saying, yes, that's the case. You see this in the media all the time, where people are saying Christianity, especially evangelical Christianity, is so polarizing, so politicizing, and so specifically favoring white men that Christianity is the white man's religion. Now, as someone with a Middle Eastern non-Christian background, before I became a Christian, I also thought of Christianity and the gospel message as a white, Western, male-centered religion. I thought that basically Christianity was used, abused, misused, and retranslated by the Romans in order to subjugate women and people with darker skin. But as I was coming to faith, I saw things differently. It took me 9 years to explore the philosophical, the historical, the scientific, and yes, even the moral underpinnings of the Christian faith to see if it actually is worth believing. And I compared it with other worldviews as well, even non-religious worldviews. And I've become convinced that when you look at the Bible message, Old and New Testaments, especially through the life of Jesus as the focusing lens, you begin to see something, that Christianity is not a white, male-centered, judgmental religion based on rules. And as if to prove the point that a book on this topic that tackles the idea of the Christian faith and issues of equality is so urgently needed, in the middle of all of it, George Floyd was murdered. And of course, his death follows a string of other deaths of African American males, which have sparked national, in fact, global conversations. Now, whether or not there was issues behind all these things is not for me to say, and I'm not talking about that in this book. But it has shown that there is an urgency on these matters, especially of racial and ethnic equality, that we can't afford to ignore. And in the midst of all of it, of course, the Me Too movement was coming to the fore, which forced us to ask questions about gender equality. And in the midst of that, with the politicization and the polarization that's been happening in our world, Christianity has become a target that says maybe it is, and its very message is, to blame. When you look at slavery passages in the Bible, when you look at the passages on women in the Bible, these are tough, these are challenging passages. Can we actually address them in biblically faithful, careful, and intellectually honest ways that show that maybe this is more than a white man's religion? I've become convinced, having come from a non-Christian background, having come from a Middle Eastern background, and even as a male, that the Christian message is more than white. It's a Middle Eastern religion that applies to all people, white people and non-white people. It's more than male-centered. Jesus appeals to women as much as to men. He vouchsafes their dignity as much as he does for men. And it's more than simply rules-based religion. The gospel message gives a message of equality and of transcendent objective value to people of every ethnicity, man or woman, and it provides to us a religion of more than rules, but a religion of redemptive relationship with the very creator of the universe. I wrote this book hoping to sustain the claim that the gospel message can help cure the very social ills it is often blamed for. The time is too urgent to flippantly cast aside the Christian faith. In More Than a White Man's Religion, what I'm hoping is that you take the time to consider whether or not the gospel message is more than a white man's religion.